You're listening to Bad Dog Agility, bringing you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. And now, here are your hosts, Sarah and Esteban.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 164.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Back on Track. Dog agility is a demanding sport and can be difficult on the body, both the dogs and the humans. Back on Track specializes in dog blankets, beds, and wraps that keep muscles warm and reduce the pain in joints. If you've got a nagging knee, calf, or ankle injury, Back on Track's human products can help get you back in the ring. Visit Back on Track at backontrackproducts.com.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by Elite Science. Unlock your dog's full potential with a unique competitive edge solution, 1-TDC. 1-tetradecanol complex is a patented blend of unique fatty acid oils designed to safely and effectively keep joints and muscles at their best to maximize performance and shorten recovery time. 1-TDC is the next generation of fatty acids and is used by many current and past national agility champions and world team members. All of our listeners will automatically qualify for a great 1-TDC special offer by purchasing online at BDA1TDC.com. That's BDA, the number 1, TDC.com.
Today, we're going to be talking about the value of outside influence on your dog agility training. And one thing I like to say is it takes a village to raise an agility dog. So we live in an era through social media, the internet, and a global connectivity in the sport where you are going to be exposed to many different ideas, many different ways of training obstacles, of handling sequences, and relating to your dog. And this is very different from when you and I started in the sport almost 20 years ago. The old model back then was you would start with an instructor or your class, and that would be your world. And there would be some discussion maybe with your classmates, but until you got out there to a trial setting where you met more people who were running dogs, or you saw students from other training schools running maybe a little differently, the influence on you was really local rather than global. And so now we live in a different era. So beginners coming into the sport, just discovering this podcast, for example, you have a larger pool of influences to draw on than Sarah and I did when we first started in the sport. So let's start with identifying all the different kind of sources out there that can have an impact on the way you train dog agility.
Well, I think the first one is going to be your instructor or instructors, the people that you go to learn agility from. And this is everybody's usually first source of outside influence.
Still the bread and butter.
That's right.
The meat and potatoes.
That's right. The meat and potatoes of the outside influence. But we can expand that view of instructors to include anybody who's watching your agility and giving you feedback, helping you look at your videos. It could be training partners that you work with in your own backyard.
It can even be a spouse or significant other who knows nothing about the sport, but they're very free with the advice they give you. And I bet you the most common one is, oh, you know what? You should probably run faster.
That's right.
Now, I know that you were talking about people who give you feedback, but I'm going to make the case that there are people out there who are influencing your agility and they've never talked with you. They've never given you feedback on your dog because they've never seen you and your dog run. And I'm going to give you a good example. I was at the World Team Tryouts a couple of years ago with Gitchy, and I was comparing our performance in one of the rounds to, I think, the dog who won that round, Roseanne Damasio, wonderful handler here in the United States, and her great Border Collie Strafe. And they really killed us on a turn to the seesaw, where we lost over 1 second to them in terms of time. And
on one obstacle.
It was a wrap. And I didn't think my turn was that bad. But when I compared it to hers, I was like, oh, this turn is
this
not
won't
good.
do.
This is, yeah. So I think that was the situation where I looked at that and I said, I need to get better. I need to see what Roseanne is doing. And in this case, she was kind of shaping the approach of the dog to that wrap, right? So little extra yardage on the takeoff side, and it gave an overall faster performance. And so that was a concept that was pretty foreign to me. And so it's something I had to look into, learn about, decide, do I need this? Do I want this? If I do, how do I train it? And so just by competing against her in that venue
and video review,
there was a powerful influence, outside influence on my dog agility training, even though, she didn't watch my run or give me any feedback. She wasn't my instructor. And so that's one of the very cool things I think about the internet, social media, and definitely like you're emphasizing here, video review.
So this outside influence is going to be great for you in terms of execution, in terms of what you're doing, in terms of having somebody watch you and tell you that your position is slightly off, that your arm signal is not clear. And a lot of times, even as experienced competitors, these are things that you may think that you're doing one way, but in actuality, you are not. You're not giving your command as early as you feel like you are. And it takes that outside person watching you to point it out to you and help you see that.
Yeah, so I'll give you another example of that. It wasn't 2 weeks ago. I was doing some throttle work with a young border collie, and she was not getting it. And when I was doing it, my training partner was telling me, "You're late, you're late, you're late, you're late." The dog is already landed and is committed to the off course, in this case, the 180. Before I'm even getting my verbal out and moving around my body. And my response is, in my head at least, although maybe I said it out loud too, is, I'm not late. I'm totally doing this right. What are you talking about? And so when I went later on the video review, yes, video review did confirm that not only was I a little late, it was more like I was very, very
grossly late.
The dog was just too fast. Not only over the bar, but already landed and taking off for the next obstacle. So, my timing was really poor. And so that's the kind of outside influence that you need, because when you are there in the moment, you're seeing things one way and it may be absolutely false.
I think that this is true for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're the most beginner person or you are the world champion. There's value in having other eyeballs on your agility training. And because I know that a lot of people, as they gain more experience, they may question going to a class. I remember when I had our first child, I was too sleepy to work all day and then drive to an agility class. And so we started training on our own. But I had you to give your eyeballs on what I was doing in the backyard. So I still had that outside influence.
All right. Well, we've talked about instructors, and we've also mentioned, training partners, classmates when you're in class. Sometimes you'll watch each other's runs. You can get feedback there. I think judges can be a very powerful outside influence on your dog training. And that's because judges design the courses that you are going to run on. That
that's
you want
a big
to do well
influence.
On.
That's right.
And many judges online now, through Facebook and other social media, post a lot of their course maps. They make it available to the public. There are resources like agilitycoursemaps.com, free resources online where you can go and look up different judges, different courses, different organizations, and find what you're looking for your own training. And whatever they're putting up, you need to be able to handle it. So when you run into challenges that you can't handle, you have to figure out a way to handle it. And boom, right there. An outside judge has influenced your training, and without watching you run or give you any kind of feedback. So I think that's a very good example. And this is one that Sarah really likes, and I agree is really undervalued, because the old model of doing your own class. So let's say you go to a weekly class. 20 years ago, where was your instructor getting most of their stuff? Well, they're probably thinking it up themselves. They either, got it from a trial they just ran, maybe they got it from Clean Run magazine or something like that. And those two examples are actually of outside sources. But the majority of the stuff they were coming up with, they thought up out of their own head. So what's the problem with that? What's the weakness? What's wrong with that?
Well, I think that the problem is that everybody has tendencies. Everybody has things that they're going to gravitate to. As humans, we kind of like patterns. We fall into patterns and we don't even realize it. And so that's why I think it's important to not just have outside influence, especially when we're talking about course maps and exercise and sequence design, but to have multiple outside influences, because to kind of get away from any one thing being overemphasized or underemphasized in terms of spacing, angles, skills required to complete the course of the sequence.
That's a great point. So at our training academy, we have our VIP program. And when we started it, I believe it was 4 years ago, we came on with Ann Croft, an agility judge, and she'd been putting a lot of her stuff online. She had all these fantastic little international courses that you could do without contact equipment. And so we brought her on to design our courses because it gives you someone else's view of agility. Someone
besides us.
Right. Because, what if we're just putting up stuff like you were just saying that we're really good at? And now you've got people that we're responsible for helping them get better. And now they're only going to be good at what we're good at. And so Anne would throw these challenges at us, maybe things we hadn't seen or hadn't seen as often, or were challenging to us. And now we've got to come up with solutions because we got to demonstrate them for other people and figure it out. And we like this so much that for this past year's VIP, a year ago, we brought in 3 additional judges who had judged at all levels. The AKC Agility Invitational, Nationals, Tryouts, World Championship, European Open, Crufts, all of that stuff. Anthony Clark, Lee Gibson, Thomas Traj, and they rotate through these courses. And so now, not only are we getting someone external to us, now we're getting 4 different views from, 3 different countries in a variety of venues at many different levels, both international and national levels. And our VIPers, benefit from that. We benefit from that. And on top of that, there's a little bit of convenience to it because this is time that we don't have to spend designing these courses. And so that is a very powerful tool that's available to almost everyone now through the magic of the internet.
Because there are course maps everywhere from all kinds of judges.
Now that we've identified some of the sources of outside influence for you, instructors, your own instructors online, other competitors, classmates, training partners, even judges who design courses and sequences and put their exercises out online. Let's talk a little bit about the pros and the cons. Now, we've touched obviously on some of the pros, right? There's a convenience aspect, right? There's the benefit of having a perspective other than your own, so you're not just practicing what you're good at. I think that is a big one. It makes you a more well-rounded competitor. I think it gives you a little more exposure to the entirety of the sport. For sure. But what are the cons? Especially for someone coming into the sport now, let's say they've been doing agility for a year. Now they've stumbled upon our podcast, and it's not just our podcast. There's a lot of information out there from a lot of different trainers, and this makes a very nice lead in to the first con, and that can be information overload. Actually, there's so much stuff out there, and a couple quick searches on YouTube or Google or even Facebook, and suddenly you realize that there's like 20 different methods to teach an A-frame contact, for example. And I think you can group them into smaller categories, or I should say larger categories or fewer categories, such as running A-frame versus a 2-on-2 off A-frame versus a whatever, but basically stopped versus running, and then the different varieties within those subheadings. So I think that can be a little overwhelming, especially for the newcomer. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, information overload is a real thing, and it definitely happens.
Well, so what advice do we want to give someone who kind of feels overwhelmed?
I think there's a difference between getting outside influence and even getting a couple of different views of that outside influence and feeling like you have to consume everything that's out there. Mm-hmm. Like taking it all versus, you don't want just one. You don't want all 1,000 perspectives, right? You want a handful. You want enough to get that variety, to get that kind of random factor in your training that helps you be more well-rounded.
I'm going to try and be even more concrete than that. I'm going to say, if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it. So let's say you're dealing with an issue and you come upon a method or a way of doing it. You try it and it works. Guess what? Problem solved. Now, let's say you try that method and it works a little bit for a short period of time, or it doesn't work that well, or it doesn't work at all. Well, now you're free to go out and try something else. And that's how I would do it. I would line them up kind of one at a time, right? And I think that you do want to be careful with the sources that you're looking at, and just understand that the answer can come from an unexpected place or an unexpected person, and you don't necessarily want to limit yourself. And I think that's something that I try to be aware of even for myself. I try to know as much as I can about all aspects of agility, but it's very, very hard to do. There's a lot of specialization within agility. To me, it's a lot like the practice of medicine. The heart surgeon has a very different set of skills than the psychiatrist, but both of them are doctors of medicine. They went to medical school, training and residency.
And there are circumstances under which you would very much like to go to each of them.
That's right. And so I think you have that in agility. For example, if I want to do running contacts, I probably want to get my tips, my advice, my approach from someone who has had success dogs, preferably with their own dogs, but also with other people's dogs, helping other people attain that same level of success. It doesn't really help me if someone's really good at doing something, but they haven't been able to teach anyone else to reproduce those results. I think that's kind of where you want to start, for running contacts. And so the same thing can be applied to weave poles, right? Or certain types of, handling approaches or maneuvers. If I want to get better at my rear crosses, I want to watch a video of people who are good at rear crosses and do them very well. And that's, I think, how you want to approach something, as opposed to trying to identify one person or, who is going to do everything. It's certainly what we all strive to be individually as instructors, I think, to be good and knowledgeable about everything. But in my opinion, there's just too much out there, for any one person to know. And there's too much variety, and there's too much variation in dog behavior. Like, even now, having worked with so many dogs, not just our own dogs, but, other people's dogs, and teaching, that you're going to run into situations that you haven't seen quite like that before. You need to be able to problem solve and work through that.
I think when it comes to course maps, to exercise setups, I think that there is a lot less danger there, because as a competitor, I want to be able to run anything that any judge I might run under can put up. Mm-hmm. So there, I think that there are very little downsides to looking at multiple sources. I guess the one downside I could say is that you need to pay attention to your skill level relative to what it is that you're setting up. But as you progress, through your agility training, there should basically be almost nothing that's, that I wouldn't set up and go try to make sure that I could run. Mm-hmm. I'll give you one concrete tip for those of you who do kind of manage your own training in your backyard. That's where the bulk of your training happens, and you need to set things up. One thing that I've found very helpful for kind of randomizing a little bit the angles of approach, of jumps and things like that, is to take a sequence from any course that you might come upon and then renumber it, because it's going to force all of the jumps to be in a little bit more of an awkward configuration than maybe what you would do if you just started with a blank sheet of paper and started putting jumps out. And it helps you, I guess this is a way to help you fight your own internal patterns, right? You start with something, and then you kind of have to make something out of it. And it's going to make everything that you design be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think there are two other cons that we need to talk about. So aside from overwhelm, just there being a lot of information out there, I think second one would be cost, because there are so many services being offered, local to you. Most people probably have access to more than one training place nearby, right? So how do you pick between the two? If you were listening to this, you would think, okay, well, maybe I should go to the one on Tuesday and then the other one on Wednesday. It's twice as much practice and I get two different points of views. But at some point you might run into cost issues, right? This is going to cost you money or time. And online as well. In fact, online is even worse, because
you have the whole world available to you.
So there's probably like 20 classes on contact training, 10 different classes on weave pole training, or 50 on puppy training that you could jump into at any time. Which class do you do? The money can add up very, very quickly. And so what I would encourage people to do is look at whoever's offering the course. Right. And you can friend those people on Facebook, find them on social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, especially because YouTube is for videos. And it's useful for a couple of reasons. One, you'll get to see them run a dog or work with a dog. A lot of time people post videos from seminars with instructors. And so basically this person, you do these quick searches. It's like an audition for you. Before I go and purchase a $200 course on puppy foundation and drive from this person, I'm going to go find some videos of someone who did that seminar with their puppy and see, oh, wow, I really like the exercises and the feedback they're giving that person. I really like that. Or, they're doing a class on blind crosses and rear crosses. Oh, I really like the way they execute their own blinds and rears on the courses that I'm seeing them run. I think that'll help a lot of people really cut down on the cost, which can definitely be a big con. A lot of free content out there.
And we also talked more about this idea, I think, in the Paradox of Choice podcast. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But we kind of talk about some strategies for narrowing down that choice. All right. Well, I know that I really like and benefit from all of the influences that I have in my agility training. And I hope that we've convinced all of you guys about the value that this can bring to your training throughout your career, no matter how inexperienced or how experienced you are, the value that you can get from outside influence.
This is not a sport for you to do by yourself. Let other people help you. So many different people have helped me and Sarah on our agility journey. And now we're trying to help other people on their agility journey. But we're not going to be the only people that are helping you and your dogs out. So take advantage of all the different resources out there, all the instruction, and not just the instruction, but the course maps, the sequences, the videos that other competitors are putting out, watching clips from the World Championships, the National Championships, from Westminster, even people when they're training their contacts and they're excited about their running contacts, their stop contacts, their new dog doing weave poles. Those are all things that you can learn from. It's free information. It's out there. They don't even need to be giving you feedback for you to take something valuable from it and to improve your own dog training. And one more thing I'll say is I always love to see a great run in agility because there's a lot of value in finding inspiration from inspirational dogs or handlers or just really fantastic runs. It can really motivate you and focus you and help you get better.
All right. And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Back on Track and Elite Science, and also NTI Global. Spring into summer sale. Start off your training season with some brand new heavy-duty agility items from NTI Global. Our sale starts this month. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com for the widest selection of dog agility tunnels for both competition and backyard training. Known for free shipping, more options, high-quality products, and low prices, NTI Global has got you covered. They also offer tamer and anchor weight bags, along with a full line of accessories and agility storage solutions. Need your agility gear in a hurry? Don't forget to check the in-stock selection. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com and use promo code AGILITYSALE for 5% savings off today. Promo code good through May 31st, 2017. Happy training!
Have you ever tried to eat a clock? It's very time consuming.